the other side is the mic. Okay, here's team 5.
You guys need to scoot back.
She said they don't matter.
Yeah, it's okay.
He said they don't matter.
Go ahead.
Alright, so we're the international and domestic justice for the few.
So the Armenian Genocide, well, it's genocide, it killed 101.5 million people, and there were a lot of death marches along with concentration camps. And it just, kind of like the Holocaust, was a murdering of a race, but the Holocaust was a murdering of a religion.
Okay, so we need to clean up the dirty laundry, and so like our past, like the America's past is also full of death and despair, and there's a lot of unfairness in other countries towards people that are different, and we need to accept our own wrongs before we accept others.
Okay, so we're gonna tying in Uncle Sam. So basically, like, it's more about like our past, so like the Trail of Tears was we are taking it as like a genocide, and it was with the Indians and everything. And in slavery, slavery was just kind of like self-explanatory. I don't know.
He was the president at the time of the Trail of Tears.
So it was like
That was
God.
Alright, well, one of the things that was in our past was the Trail of Tears. And it was moving the Native Americans out of their home for no specific reason. And there was a smallpox blankets, and 16,000 people were removed, or Native Americans were removed, and then along the trail, 4,000 of them were confirmed dead.
Alright, so slavery, millions of black people were killed. They were treated like animals. They were insufficiently fed. Weren't treated as equal. So obviously it should be said as genocide because all these people, not white people, but just black people, were being killed for one, the color of their skin, and two,
So, as part of our thing, like we said earlier, we wanted to clean up our own wrongs before we started accepting other people's. And with the Trail of Tears and slavery, we wanted to add this amendment to the House Resolution 106, and it says, "All enslavement of blacks may not have been constituted genocide. It was clearly a gross violation of human rights. The U.S. government must make amends for their actions." And then for the Trail of Tears, they wanted what the U.S. government did to natives and their lands was clearly an act of genocide. So we want.
And why does it matter? It matters because if we can't recognize what we've done in our own past, then how are we going to come to a solution on other countries' past?
Then can you click it back to the amendment while they ask questions? Okay, if you look at the very bottom of your back page where there's the 2 check boxes, if you were confused before, hopefully these guys can unconfuse you. When you have a bill or a resolution in Congress, can someone tack something on the end and add to it? It's called an amendment. They want to add an amendment, that right there. In addition to calling what the Turks did genocide, they say the United States should basically take responsibility for that stuff. So if you agree with that amendment, the first box you check would be yes. If you disagree with that amendment, you would check no at the end. That's separate then the Armenian part. So they want to tack that on, and what do they want you to vote on both of those?
Yes.
We want them to vote yes for the amendment, and if you guys accept that, then we want you to vote yes for the Armenian genocide to be considered a genocide.
If you vote yes on the amendment,
Yeah, if you vote yes on the amendment, then vote yes for it being genocide.
it's right. Can you not see it?
Red.
Can you just paraphrase it?
No, it's pretty much saying that since the blacks, this like slavery and the whole thing with the blacks, it wasn't genocide, but it was against our human rights. And then with the Native Americans taking their lands, it was clearly genocide.
Do you guys want to call it an Armenian?
If this is getting called, like, if we get these amendments, then we want to call it Armenian genocide.
Does their perspective make sense? I'm not saying do you like it.
No.
Then you didn't pay attention. What was one of their first slides about?
1 second. Dick.
Alright, so when, like, do you guys have dates for the Trail of Tears and when the so-called genocide happened with the Americans? Like, do you have a date for when that happened?
Do you guys know the dates of
The
this?
Americans and genocide?
It was in the 1900s. 1800s.
He meant 19th
Yeah.
century.
19th century, there we go.
What was your question?
When did the American genocide, so-called American genocide happen?
Are you talking about the Trail of Tears?
Yeah, like that stuff.
1836 or something?
That happened in the South, didn't it?
They didn't know.
From Florida and Georgia, they had to walk like 2,200 miles to Oklahoma.
Oh, my fault.
You got, let's do 2 more questions because we got one last group.
Longer.
Okay, so my understanding is that you're saying if we want to point fingers and tell them to call it genocide, then we also need to look at our own wrongdoing and call them genocide as well.
Yes.
Okay, I think the trouble that you would have there is defining slavery as a genocide. Because I think by
No,
definition,
we're
you
not
want to keep
trying
your
to say that
workforce
slavery
alive
was
and
a
not
genocide. We're not trying to say slavery was a genocide. We're trying to say that it's against our human rights.
Well, this is talking about genocide, right? And you're amending a genocide because slavery. I know, but you're classifying all this under, this whole thing is about genocide, and you're making an amendment onto a bill about, or not bill, a resolution about genocide. So isn't putting slavery in there kind of contradictory?
I
Because you
guess.
don't want to eliminate your slaves. If I'm putting this in perspective from like, when back when we had slavery, you might want to control them, but you don't want to eliminate them as a race.
Yeah.
What would you do? You would lose your workforce. So I think they're kind of almost, neither one of them is right, but they're opposite.
To play devil's advocate, because that's my job in here, if you look at from about the start of the 17th century until 1865 when slavery was abolished, about 12 million African Americans were brought here. The UN definition of genocide in 1948, when they agreed on one, includes the forceful deportation of people or their kids. Because we think genocide, like line them up and shoot them. Sterilizing them is genocide. Taking a whole generation of kids away is genocide. I'm not saying I agree with that, but that's like the devil's advocate argument.
But that definition of genocide doesn't match what we defined earlier.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, so that's kind of pointless.
It's food for thought. Okay, good job. Can we hit pause on that? Hit the red button.